Stop. I'm not even gonna finish that joke. Stop it. Anyways, someone asked for me to watch this video. They redeemed it, so let's take a quick look.
Look at another woke children's book. This one, on the surface, I mean, literally reading the book by its cover, it seems maybe not as bad as some of the others that we've looked at, that we've reviewed, but you never know. So we just kind of we're gonna read this whole thing. It's pretty short, and I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll offer my review. So let's get it.
C is for consent. Let's see what Matt Walsh has to say about consent. This guy is special. He does call himself a theocratic fascist. Theocratic fascist. That's what he calls himself. It's right here. He saw the Vatican. He was like, damn, that shit look tasty. And he wants to do the same to the US. This is actually unironically. I think like it's, if I remember correctly, it's half a meme and half true. So I think if you call him a fascist, he'll get upset. But he does want like the Bible to rule America. Basically, he doesn't want like his like theocratic beliefs to supersede the like democracy and like whatever dumb shit that is, and he wants like Christian Sharia law. I think that's unironically his position when it comes to policy. Listen, it's just a meme, bro. It's just I call myself a fascist as a meme, bro. It's just a joke.
Theocratic fascist.
This is called C is for consent. And this is, it says ages.
What was that? That was in his video? What? Why do you start screaming at the word consent?
And this is, it says ages, this is for ages 0 and for consent. And this is.
What the fuck? Was that supposed to be a meme? Was that a joke? Is this supposed to be funny? Consent. Ah! Ah! Consent. Ah! Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we hate consent. Isn't that right, chat? Consent. More like cringe scent. Ain't that right, chat? You guys are gonna back me up on this, right? Right, chat? We hate. Oh no, dude.
This is, it says ages. This is for ages 0 and plus. So if you have a 0-year-old child, they could read this and up from there. I mean, you know, it's a board book. It's short, so this is really for kids, probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. All right. It says it's time for a party with family and friends. And you see, of course, there we've got the interracial gay couple. We've got the interracial disabled couple. One member of the couple's disabled. You got to get all the representation there. And that's
just America. That's just you know, it'd be really weird if it was like just white people. You know what I mean? It's also a book for kids. It's supposed to like expose them to what the world looks like. So obviously it's going to be a little bit, obviously it's going to be a little bit more disproportionately diverse because it's supposed to be targeted for kids and get them like inoculated to the real world. Not everyone in America is all straight and white. Many people are saying this. This is very true.
I don't see any furries. I don't see anyone who's apparently transsexual or even transgender or pansexual. So that's a problem, but we'll keep going.
You can't say. What does a physically pansexual person look like? Does he actually believe like a pansexual person walks around with fucking saucepans tied to their fucking clothes? Like, what the fuck does that shit mean? Visibly well, it's not very diverse. I don't see any like visibly gay people. Like, you're supposed to see them. It's supposed to be gay written on their forehead, homosexual written on the back of their hand. Grandma wants a hug.
Grandma wants a hug, but Finn isn't in the mood. That's okay, says Dad. You don't have to give hugs if you don't want to. Grandpa leans down to kiss Finn. Mom says, please ask for consent first. Grandpa asks, may I kiss you on the cheek? Finn replies, yes, you may. Auntie and Uncle want Finn to sit with them. Come sit on my lap. No, you have to sit on my lap. Finn says, no, thank you. My parents say I don't have to sit on anyone's lap if I don't feel like it. What a brat this kid is.
That's a brat? What the fuck? Dude, maybe he does think consent is like bratty. He's like, ugh, fuck, dude. Ugh, I need consent. This kid wants consent? Ugh. Like, oh, geez. That seems pretty, I think that's pretty good to me. Wife comes home from work like an absolute bitch. Like tired, wants to have some food. Like, can you imagine that? And then I ask if I can raw dog her asshole, and just like an absolute brat, she says, no, I want to go to bed. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? It couldn't be me. Not in my America. This is literally 1952, if you think about it. I read that book, and it basically says just this. He was honestly someone who would berate you for saying no. Oh yeah, no, 100%. I would not lie. I would not think that he's not on the same path as like fucking Dennis Prager, who wrote that whole Cope article because his wife didn't want to have sex with him, and who said like it's okay, like you shouldn't say no to your partner if they want to have sex with you if you're married, because like that's what being married is. You have sex with them whenever they want, I guess. I didn't see that written in the papers, but I guess some people missed the fine print.
Mom's friends give Finn a present. Does that mean he has to hug or kiss that person? Only if he wants to. Maybe Finn could high five or fist bump instead, or maybe he doesn't want to be touched at all. It's his choice what happens to his body. Finn is happy to see his best friend Rue. He asks, may I hold your hand? It is okay for you to say no. Rue.
Oh my gosh, we're teaching our boys to be betas, man. May I hold your hand? It's okay if you say no. Like, beta, bro. What you're supposed to do is pick her up and just lift her above your head. Come on, man.
Rue replies, yes, you may hold my hand. Thank you for asking first. And that's it. That's the end of the whole story. Okay. Then there are discussion questions at the end, which we won't get into. Well, so that actually is, somewhat surprisingly, this is the worst one yet, I think. This somehow...
What were the other ones if this one's the worst? That's a massive self-report. I'm hitting the button, man. Wait, I have to hear how he thinks that this is the worst one yet. I'm genuinely curious, because I thought he was going to be like, wow, I was actually pleasantly surprised that this book has nothing crazy in it. But no, this is the worst one.
How manages to be more disturbing than books that are pushing transgenderism and bisexuality and all that kind of stuff. Those books are bad too, but don't get me wrong, but this one disturbs me on a deeper level. So let's count the ways. To begin with, before we get to the major problems here, this kid is awful. I mean, this is what happens when you have permissive hippie parents. I can't imagine if I was a little kid, if I was like 6 years old, and my grandmother came to visit and said, hey, give me a hug. And I said, nah, I don't feel like it, Granny. I cannot imagine what my dad's reaction would have been. It would not have been pleasant, I can tell you. My reaction with my...
What the fuck? I don't get this. How does this happen? This is like, is this some like survivorship bias or something? Where you're like, you've seen these people like in real life, right? I always thought that these people were fake, but no, it's real. Where they're like, oh yeah, if I ever did anything wrong, they would just beat me into a bloody pulp. Dude, man, my punishment wasn't done until I was bleeding and crying. And that was back in the good old days. Ah, yes, we all know the good old days where we just beat our children until they were bloody. And man, that was so good. What's wrong with you? You need to see a therapist. You have trauma. There's something wrong with you. If like a kid is like, I don't want to be touched, and your immediate reaction is to just beat them, you don't deserve kids. You shouldn't be around children. A court should take them away from you. You are an unstable and unhinged human being. There's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry your family life sucks so bad that you think it's acceptable to just be beat. And that's honestly one of the now this is disturbing. And this is what he takes into his real life, right? This is the disturbing part. Things were done to him and his consent was never a part of the question. So now that he's an adult, the likelihood of him doing the same exact thing for his like partner, his friends, his children goes up dramatically, where he's going to treat them like consent is some like disgusting, dirty word that only like losers and hippies care about, and things will be done to you. I'll do things to you. Things will be done to you, whether you like it or not, lest you be like tortured for it. Pretty much my child. Yeah, lots of people think this way. I honestly think, and I don't know if I've talked about this on stream, but I honestly think that like beating your kids should be a crime. I think that should be a crime, like 100%. That should be like a 100% crime. You should be like fined for that. If you're found like beating your kids, like 100%. There is no reason why you should be beating your kids. They're not dogs. They're not animals. If you can't handle your kids without just beating the shit out of them, then then you don't deserve to have kids. Like, I'm sorry. Listen, I stole a cookie once. My dad probably broke both of my legs and fractured my skull. Kids today are weak and we need to stop doing this. Ah, yes. technically it is a crime, people need to be like locked up for it. Well, maybe not locked up, but depending on like how bad it is, obviously, but CPS takes away kids for less. Brother, my parents only hit me if I did something really bad, like steal. Could they not like talk to you? I really feel like, here's the thing. I really feel like the only reason that parents go to beating is because, for one, they think it's like the most effective thing, and two, because they're too lazy to actually parent. Like, or three, because they're just mad. I feel like a lot of parents don't beat their kids because they think it's going to actually do good things for them. They're mad and they want to let out their anger, and an acceptable way we find ourselves to let our anger for like inconveniencing us, like making us upset, or like having like an actual problem, is to just beat them. And that's how like some people like burn their energy, by just like beating the shit out of their kids. Conservatives be like, wearing a mask is child abuse, and then proceeds to whip their child with an electric cord. Yeah, that's actually unironically conservatives. They normally talk to me first. When I did it anyways, I would get hit. There's no reason to be hit. Yeah, my dad did it, so it's okay. Yeah, like this, you're like, you need like help. You're suffering from trauma, what you're suffering from. Yeah, my mom's skull was busted once. Holy shit. I'm telling you, people, we need to like actually have a lot of like outlaw this sort of like abuse. To have like domestic abuse like encompass those sorts of like physical abuse, because it is, at the end of the day, it is abuse. Like, kids who are like beat when they're kids end up worse than kids who weren't. Like, this is just factual. This is just factual. They all end up worse. And people can bitch and moan and say, no, when I was younger, actually, I really needed it. Things would have turned out worse. No, it wouldn't have. You always end up worse. This is just statistically proven. They always end up as worse. They lie more. They think abuse is like more acceptable in their life. This is just terrible. It's a bad thing. You shouldn't be able to just like do shit like this. And the normalization of just beating people who did something that you don't like is a part of the problem, and leads to you're right, it leads to a cycle of violence that needs to be broken. You shouldn't be letting that out on your kids. Yeah, they're more prone to violence and stuff. Just bad person. Bad. Don't do it. You actually gain nothing from it. Kids actually learn worse when they're like being beat as well. I don't think I got it in me to spank a child. Well, a lot of people like beating kids, so just kind of be like that. The only thing I beat is my meat. So true, bestie.
My own kids wouldn't be pleasant in that situation. Yes, I tell them. I guess let me tell you something. I violate my kids' consent all the time, in the sense.
I'm just like, for a moment, this is just an amazing quote.
I violate my kids' consent all the time, in the sense that I force them to do things they don't want to do. Sit down and study!
Woke children books with Matt Walsh and woke pride ads with Knowles. What a great way to start the day. What a brat this kid is. Lamau, imagine on grandparents' deathbed and Finn won't give her a hug because he isn't in the mood. They just came over to say hi. The left really does sexualize everything. Bro, consent isn't just about sex. What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? Wait a second, if that's the case, then I'm so excited for forced vaccinations, because your consent doesn't need to be taken into account there. Because listen, consent's only when you're having sex with someone. Everything else is just, it's free and fair game for anyone to do whatever they want with your body, as long as you don't have sex with them. These people need to be like locked in a cage away from the rest of society. Forget consent. This book about raising a jerk. Asking girls for consent before you touch them is being a jerk? No, here it is. Or a beta male. No, he's actually doing it. No, dude.
Or beta male.
Like, I'm not even joking here. You need to be like kept away from society. If you think being someone who cares about consent makes you a jerk, you need to be kept away from society. Bro, and these are the same people who always say that like men are rapists and some shit. Like, have you seen yourself? Have you seen what you're doing on this video right now? How many views does this have? 124,000? With all you people screeching about how consent is lame and makes you a jerk? Excuse me? Bro, all women need to be trained to carry fucking firearms, specifically for everyone in this comment section. Specifically for everyone in this comment section, okay? All girls need to learn how to tactical roll and put like 12 bullets in the center mass. This is so surreal. 5 years ago, this would have been satire. Consent was satire 5 years. These are the same people who say like rape culture isn't real. Consent is satire 5 years ago. Okay, the left wants consent to be given to kids for hugs for his aunt, but see nothing wrong with men in prison cells and women without. But men in prison cells with women without a woman's consent. They're already in prison? They're already in prison? Wait, you could use the same logic. Oh, the left cares about consent when it comes to like touching children, but you're telling me that when I tried to go to my all-white diner, I had to sit next to black people even without my consent? Yikes. Another hypocrisy from the left. Excuse me? Why doesn't the kid have to give consent to receive a present? Maybe he doesn't want to receive the present. Oh, right. Handouts are always welcomed. Wait, it wasn't about receiving the present. It was about what you do in it. These people can't understand a children's book. You actually can't. You are so dumb you can't understand a children's book? Is our education that bad? Does conservatism really rot your mind that bad that 3 simple sentences from a children's book goes over your head? And apparently 500 other people who agree? Man, this comment needs more likes. It's so accurate. I hope they never try to get a romantic or sexual partner in their entire life, bro. And if they do, I hope that person is fucking armed, because to be around this person is to be like moments away from like some like horrible thing happening to you. This guy is his own walking like fucking final destination. Holy shit. That part of the book was about what someone who gifts you something is obligated to get from you. So what that part of the book was saying was that even if someone gives you something, even if someone does something for you, and even if you're gracious for that, and even if you take it, you are under no obligation to give that person something else that you do not consent to yourself. If someone engages in a consensual act, as in like giving you something as a present, you do not owe them any part of your body or your time or your resources for that. That's what it was about. If someone gives you a present, but you don't want, and they like ask you for a kiss afterwards, you don't have to give them a kiss for the present. That's not how that works. You don't owe them something like that. But apparently for this guy, that completely goes over his head. He actually literally cannot understand it. He can't understand like you not being in a completely transactional exchange with anyone, and you now deserve part of their time or their being because you gave them something.
Much of the day, in fact, involves them doing things that it's not their idea to do those things. They don't really want to do those things. Clean their room. Let's start with that. Like, I don't get their consent for that. What is that, forced labor? Is that slavery?
When a lot of people own like mom and pop shops or whatever, and then they have their kids work, but for like no money, that is forced labor. That is like literally forced labor. We all agree that we can violate some people's consent over like some things in some situations. So if you want to go drunk drive, society holds back your consent by saying if you drunk drive, you will be punished for that. And the punishment will be a punishment without your consent. That's like how that works. Sure. And with kids, there are some things that they can do that harms them. We want to lead them in a decent direction. So there are some things that we do to children without their general consent. And I think some of those things need to be pulled in a little bit, but there are lots of things that are probably fine, like getting their teeth checked, going to the doctor, getting blood work done. A decent amount of that the kids will probably be like, oh, I really hate this. Oh, I really don't want to go, but you have to go. Well, like some of those things, because they're a kid, but they can't make informed decisions about the health of their teeth and think about that in the long term for when they become an adult. But you like touching them, you should you probably should ask for a little bit of care, take care for some consent when it comes to you touching children. Mr. Matt Walsh.
My kids know that when a family member comes over to visit, you go and give them a hug. It's not an option. It's not a choice. You are required to do that.
Well, don't look at me like I'm frickin' Frankenstein. Give your father a hug.
Because that's polite. But the major problem here is that the book explains.
It's polite, so you're forced to do things that are just polite? What the fuck? That's so weird. What if there's something else that someone thinks that is polite, but you find like extremely uncomfortable? You should just do it just because it's polite? You should just give people whatever you want just because it's polite? It seems pretty submissive. Seems pretty beta.
explicitly sexualizes physical
Yeah, the least sexually harassive conservative on the block.
contact between family members. I mean, this author who is it? Eleanor Morrison. He, his, her, whoever's, they're taking their own, I don't want to misgender them. Whoever it is, they're taking their own complex and projecting it onto everyone else. I don't know what's going on with you, that you view a hug from an aunt or a grandfather as potentially sexual in nature, but it's something you should be talking to a therapist about. You don't write it into a children's book, for God's sake. And this is what you get from the left, right? They grew up on a diet of Freud, whether they know it or not, and now they see everything in sexual terms. Everything is sexual.
It's not sexual. You can't just go out into public and grab someone. Even if it's in like a non-sexual manner, you can't do that. You know that's like assault, right? If you just start grabbing people, you can't do that. Even if it's in a non-sexual manner, like their consent in that interaction with you putting your hands on them, even if it's not sexual, is important to get their consent. We all know asking for consent is basically communism.
Incapable of conceptualizing any human interaction that might occur outside of a sexual framework. Everything for them is sexual or potentially sexual, and they're weirdos, in other words, to summarize.
Losers, in other words.
I mean, let's take the family dynamic out of it for a second, just for a moment, because I don't want to dwell on that. It's too disturbing. And let's pretend that we're talking about just some dude and a girl, and they're not related.
Okay.
Even in that context, the idea that verbal consent should precede every physical interaction is asinine. I mean, my wife would look.
Listen, there are like some things where we can be like, let's say if you need to, there's some like very fringe things that you can get that I would imagine that this rule does not apply to. If you need to get someone's attention and they can't hear you or something, and you like tap them on the shoulder, or if someone's about to back into you, so you like push your hand up and you like touch their like shoulder blade when they back into you or something, or you're coming through and you like put your hand like on like the top side of their arm or something to let them know that you're there. In that case, when you're in public and you don't know someone, sure, absolutely. If you're a general rule, and obviously they're going to be, does he want to sound like a rapist? I don't think he cares if he sounds like a rapist. There are general rules that if you're like out in public, you shouldn't touch people without their like verbal consent. Yeah. Even when you're at the doctor's office, they ask you for consent before they touch you. What are you talking about? What's happening? He's so sad and miserable. No, he makes people around him sad and miserable.
Look at me like a maniac if we were walking somewhere down the sidewalk or something, and I said, "Excuse me,
may I have consent to hold your hand? Requesting permission to initiate physical interaction."
Permission granted. You may maintain physical contact for 75 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's what they want.
Well, your wife only wants to touch. Wait, you're telling me if your wife had the choice, she would only touch you for 75 seconds at a time? Oh, maybe me and her have a lot in common. All right, buddy. I can see how your marital status is going. That's unfortunate. You didn't have to talk about it like that. We are not your relationship coach, bro. This is so weird. And honestly, you don't have to get like this sort of like verbal consent. But let's say, hey, listen. Let's say you're walking with your partner, and you guys aren't holding hands, and they go to do something, and you're waiting for them to come back. And so they come back, and what you do is you put your hand out like this, like by your side, where the side that they're coming from, and you hold your hand out like this. That, you know what that is? That's you asking for them to hold your hand. It's not verbal. It's a non-verbal cue, but I'm pretty sure most people understand that if you're dating someone, or like you're seeing someone and they hold their hand out like that by their side where you are, like that's them asking for consent for you to hold their hand. I'm pretty sure, unless you don't know anything about that. I guess maybe your wife doesn't hold your hand. Who knows? Maybe that's why he just doesn't know anything about it.
Now we know why leftists are so angry all the time. They're lonely. Nobody wants to be around them because they act like some bizarre mix. It's the weirdest mix of hedonistic sex fiend and robot.
You wouldn't know perversion if it put clamps on your testicles.
Leftist men in particular are just lonely. There's no way any woman wants to be around this kind of thing if they carry on like this.
Hey, do I have any women in here real quick? Do I have any women in here? We all know that women hate it when guys ask for consent, right? Like one of the when we're thinking about it, one of the biggest things that women think about when you know, I'm listening to women like air their grievances about men. One of the biggest things that come up is that men ask for consent too often. It's really one of their biggest complaints, and it's really unfortunate. It's really driving a wedge between us and our queens. Isn't that right?